Morning, everyone, and I'd like to go ahead and convene the development committee meeting. And Saul, is it you or is it Will who has to give the disclaimer around meetings being held via
Well,
video?
Will is trying to get much better at it, and he's had a couple of opportunities, but he hasn't quite gotten it down. Yes, we'd like to give Will another opportunity to improve his skills in that area. So,
All right. Why don't you go ahead and do that for us, Will?
uh,
Will, you're muted.
Am I still muted?
we can't hear you.
Can anyone hear me?
I think we're going to have to give Will another chance, another time.
Will, we can hear you from your computer, so mute your phone so we're not getting the feedback.
You can hear me from the computer.
Yes.
Okay, great. This meeting is being held pursuant to Executive Order 16, as amended and extended by Executive Orders 34, 51, 60, 65, and 71, in connection with the continuing state of emergency caused by COVID-19. This meeting is being held to conduct essential business of the Development Committee of the Board of Commissioners of Metropolitan Development Housing Agency. The public has been invited to attend. The meeting will be recorded and made available for public viewing on YouTube. This can be accessed via the MDHA website, nashville-mdha.org, tab, newsroom, pull-down menu, public documents. Official business may commence upon a motion, second, and roll call vote in favor of said motion to proceed with this meeting electronically.
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Ensar, you are muted.
Sorry about that. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Roll call.
Aye.
I think a roll call is required.
Yes, Will, do you want to call the roll? Did we lose Will?
Yeah, he says he cannot hear from his computer.
Okay. So development, I'll call the roll. Hopefully I remember everybody committee. Okay, Chair Ansari.
Aye.
Commissioner Purcell.
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman.
Aye.
Commissioner Thaden.
Okay, I think I've got it's not working.
That's an understatement. Commissioner Thaden, did she ever respond aye? Have we lost her? I see her, but I can't hear her. Can everybody else hear her?
No.
Okay, can you give us how about giving us a high sign? Okay. That'll work for now. And let's see, Bishop Campbell and Commissioner
Aye.
Batt. He's aye if he's on the committee. And Commissioner Batts.
Aye.
All right, so in a very unique way, we have passed the motion, Chair. I'm sorry. Emily, you're muted. Can you talk?
Yeah, sorry, I was just testing my audio. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, it's to you, Chair. You're muted.
Are we back?
Yes.
Got it. And so with what was that, Saul? All voting aye. The motion is approved.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we'll jump into today's development committee meeting agenda. It is a relatively short agenda, but I think I first want to tell everyone, I hope everyone had a great holiday season and welcoming, what came into 2021 both healthy and safe. And even though we're in the midst of some strange political times, we won't make this a political conversation. But if we're all healthy and we're all safe, it looks like the fabric of democracy will withstand this mini assault here in the next 46 days, and we will get through to another successful transition of administrations at the executive level. So with that, welcome everyone into 2021, and here's to us doing great things both individually in the businesses and endeavors in which we engage and as an agency. So our committee agenda is relatively light. We only have one matter today, which is around a pilot agreement for approximately 201 affordable housing units. So with that, I will turn that over, I believe, to Joe Kane if he's on the phone.
Thank you. Good morning. Yes, I'm going to second everybody's comments on a wonderful new year, and that all is going well here. So thank you very much. I have for you the first pilot for the year 2021. This pilot agreement is one we have few of located in West Nashville. This is located on Modena Avenue. It is near. I don't know how many people are familiar with the street. I am not, but it is near White Ridge Road and Charlotte Avenue, over in the West Nashville area behind that Kroger back up in that is located over there. This is 40 one-bedroom units, 128 two-bedroom units, and 33 three-bedroom units. These are existing units that are already there. The buyer on this is Audit. They have received a allocation of 4% tax credits. They will be doing renovations to each individual apartment, including making some of them ADA accessible that are no longer there and available. They are going to be doing the renovations in place with the tenants in place. There will be no relocation of tenants to come out of there. And so we are working. We have not quite yet finalized what the amount of the pilot abatement will be. We do know it needs an abatement. It is currently paying $182,974 a year, or $910 per unit. Based on our previous pilots that we have approved, this is already a fairly high tax rate that is in there, and so we do anticipate that it will indeed need a pilot, because we do know the value is going to go up. We just haven't finalized what that will be. And so we're requesting, and I'm not sure if you want to bring back the final pilot agreement to the committee next month before the board, but we are trying to get board approval of this in February of the total pilot agreement and the final dollars amount. So that's why I want to present it to you today. And then if there's any questions or discussions about this, we will have a final pilot agreement available for next month, and the final dollar amounts of what it will be. It resets every year to $2.5 million of abatement that we have authorized by Metro Council.
Hey, Joe, this is Saul. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so first question is, what has held up the calculation of the pilot? Are we in negotiation with the owner? Have you not completed your underwriting? What is
We are, we still need negotiations with the owner. It is, is why we haven't finalized our underwriting on that. Their request is more than, we know their request is high, and so we're going to be coming in less than what their request is. We are certain of that. And so it is partly on our side, but because this is a rehab acquisition and rehab, it's a little bit different, and it's taken us a little bit longer to get our hands around it as well.
okay? So the positives of this particular project is that it's in a location where we don't have a lot, as I understand it, a lot of ability for low income and affordable. So we're very excited about that. I guess the extent that there's a con, the con is that it's in the same kind of area, which means the tax is going to be higher. The base tax for this project, if where it's at, is going to be high, meaning the abatement's going to be high. Is that fair to say?
Well, we think since it is existing no, we do not think it's going to be that high. The abatement is probably going to be, at a couple $100 per unit based on the value of the credits they're going to be getting, because we cannot go below the existing base year taxes. So, and then the value of the credits is what our analysis is coming up to, and we don't think it's going to be very significant going into the $2.5 million cap.
Okay. All right. So that's good information. All right. So in a way, this was sort of, this was more, I think it's of course, chair of the committee, but it's kind of difficult for I would think, for the committee to approve at this time without knowing what the abatement is. So maybe what we can do is have as much discussion as we want today on this, and then have it on the agenda for the meeting before the February board meeting. We have the exact numbers, and if we get the numbers out earlier, I guess we can send that out to the committee members. They'll be prepared to discuss it in our February committee meetings. That makes sense.
Certainly with me, if the chair is in favor of that.
Yeah, I think that works, but I have a pretty fundamental question. Is if this is going to be preserved for affordable housing, like I don't understand why they actually need an abatement, right? I don't quite understand it. Are they acquiring a property and lowering rents from existing rents as they exist today, and they're making the housing more affordable than it currently is through this acquisition? Or will they acquire the property, and if they, let's just say, because they're saying we're going to make sure that we have no more than 60% of the area median income, will the rent roll actually go up? Because if they're paying $182,000 today in property taxes and the rent roll remains the same, what is the abatement for?
This is exactly why we got into doing pilots for low-income housing tax credits, because the assessor treats the value of the credits as income to the property itself. And so when you do the normal income approach to the valuation of properties, not only are they counting the income that comes in from the rent rolls, they start to calculate the income that comes in from the credits themselves. And we're valuing we value that these credits are worth about $16 million that come in. And so that is the additional income that comes in. The tax assessor values that credit, values that dollars as income to the property, which then lifts essentially where they have to pay full market rate, essentially the equivalent of full market rate property taxes on it, when in reality, all the value of the tax credits go into being able to make them affordable in the construction side. And so they are, as Director Harbison always used to say, they are taxing the tax credits. And so it's kind of a double whammy coming in on the developer, making them unfeasible if when the assessor comes along and reappraises it and bumps these things up based on fair market value. This is going through significant rehab as well.
Saying that the appraiser takes the approach, they don't take an income approach to valuation?
No. They take that value of the tax credit. So say the tax credits, when they're sold, they bring in $16 million, and they apply that to the their valuation of the property at the time that they assess it when it's done. And so that causes, and so that increases the value, so to speak, in their mind. And then they set the property assessment based on that amount. And that's what makes it difficult to keep them affordable, because because of that method that is used by tax assessors across the state. And so pilots for LIHTC projects, payment in lieu of property taxes, are a way to mitigate that and make it easier for developers to do these projects and keep them whole and financially feasible. That's the model.
Yes, Commissioner Bowers, you're absolutely correct. And Commissioner, I'm sorry to expand on that. That is based on a court ruling that came down. And so this is something that, while we have been trying to work with the assessors, trying to get these things reversed, they cannot do that at this time based on the court ruling. And so this is how they have to appraise these, as they do value in those credits. Now, when the value of the credits burn off, which is within the 10-year period, this is why we established the pilots to be for 10 years, then there's no income from that. And then they can purely go back and tell the assessor, no, we are income restricted. This property we cannot charge it fair market rents on these. We can only charge these restricted rents based on HUD. And therefore, then they'll value the property then based truly on what the income from the rents are. But for the time being, this is the way that we have been addressing these, because of tax on the tax. With that said, PHDA, every legislation, along with a lot of a lot of LIHTC developers are trying to get legislation passed at the state level so that assessors will not tax essentially the value of the credits. However, state law now requires them to do that. So this is why we are doing these pilots, in addition to the benefit of getting more and additional affordable housing.
Commissioner, and sorry if I may answer your question. I think you were asking about the two different ways to appraise property, the income method and the asset method. And so the asset method, essentially, they value the full value of the tax credits, the $16 million in this case at the outset. That would diminish over time. But to your question about the income method, they would actually count the annual value of the tax credit as income, as if it were rent. So under either methodology, there's an incremental tax that's applied to these LIHTC properties that is obviated by the pilot. So yeah, unfortunately, there has not been a sort of workaround to avoid this impact of the Spring Hill case ruling.
Got it. I totally understand it now. So Joe, when you're saying we're negotiating with the developer now, what we're really trying to identify is what is the impact, the incremental impact of the taxes being created by the low-income housing tax credits itself, and the pilot is structured to offset that amount.
Yes, and you
can just say yes.
Well, I want to say we're also trying to throw the smallest amount possible that the project will generate. So that's why. So we're not necessarily trying to offset 100% of what the increment is. We're trying to give the least amount of money that will make the project feasible.
Mm-hmm.
14 years.
Years, correct.
Got it. And will these units be affordable for only they'll remain permanently affordable? Is this a 10-year affordability component, or is it a 30-year affordability component? What is it?
It's 15?
I know it's 20. I believe it may be for 30. I'm not certain on that. I'll confirm that.
Commissioner Ansari, if you can hear me, it's a 30-year affordability period. That's a deed restriction that's recorded with the Register of Deeds. It extends per THDA rules above and beyond a ordinary 10 or 15-year period.
Got it.
I have several questions. One is, I think I heard you say that the renovations will be going on while the tenants are in place. And I wanted to know, have the tenants been consulted? And it's usually, if they're doing the kind of renovations we're talking about at the cost levels we're talking about, those are really, really disruptive. So I need to understand that a bit more.
The renovations are coming in around $30,000 per unit. The acquisition, the property is valued in at $180,000, but the renovations are going to be about $30,000 per unit that are going to go in there. It's going to be HVAC systems. It's going to be smoke detectors. It's going to be do cleanup into the kitchen and upgrades into the individual units. They are going to the tenants will have to leave the units during the day so they can get in there, but they will be cleaned up every night. They'll have to leave like between 9 and 4. I'm reading a memo I got from the developer. All the tenants will be given a stipend to pay for lunch because they'll have to be out of their units as well with that. And there also will have the community room will be set up so people will have a place to go with during the day themselves. So they're not just if the people are not otherwise occupied during the time frame, they will have a place to be able to go as well. The renovations that will go for the ADA, those people will have to be relocated out of the units. It may take like up to 3 weeks, and they will be put into a hotel for that period of time as well. So that is their relocation plan.
Aside, if the ADA renovations take 3 weeks, how long are the other renovations that are going to be costing $30,000 per unit take?
I do not have that time frame. I will confirm that out because it will not require them to vacate the units or relocate the furniture out and stuff like that. So it will not be as significant on there. But they are, obviously the contractors will have to work around that. So I will get more detailed information on what they estimate that to be.
Now, what in terms of monthly dollars, there's 60% of AMI. That's meaningless to me. I need to understand the dollars of that. And I'm not good at math.
Joe, can you just break it down by household size?
All right.
Make it easy, because some of the units are 1 bedroom, some of them are 2, some of them are 3. Matt, I think Matt's got that.
Oh, Matt, you grabbed it in front of me. All right.
I happen to have it taped to my the cabinet behind me.
Thank you.
So for a family of 2 persons, 60% of AMI, according to the FY19 numbers, was $38,400. And so the rent would be $960. For a single person, 60% of AMI is $33,600, and the corresponding rent at 30% of income would be $840. Just picking another number for a family of 5, 60% of AMI is $51,840, and the corresponding allowable rent would be $1,296.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
But these are LIHTC, so the rents are set by the number of bedrooms. It's a little different calculation. I know it gets into the weeds, but
This gives me a feel. That's all I need. I needed to get some sense, because the experience, and again, these were not MDHA involved properties, was once the renovations were made, they doubled the rent. People were basically dislocated. And it sounds like, given the legal parameters and the requirements of pilots, et cetera, that will not happen.
I would also like to say that the average rent in these apartments now is over $1,000 a unit right now, and so the rents are going to be going down for every type of unit, 1s, 2s, and 3s each. So there will be a break coming into the households there with that. One of the questions that I know Mr. Filgen has asked about that is what happens if some of the individuals happen to be over income, which is always problematic in these cases. The developer will not force them out. They will try and give them an incentive to move out, but they will not push people out of that. They are doing income averaging with these units on there, so that they will average 60% or below median income. So they do have the flexibility to go up on that. So yes.
So some could be rented to people at 80% of AMI. As long as it averages out for the complex to that lower percentage number, it's allowed.
That is correct, yes.
Joe, I don't have a question, but I do have a request. Moving forward, would you, when you bring these to us, would you also have an accompanying kind of spreadsheet that shows what pilots we have or have been awarded, and where they are, and what the and where they a date for the burn off period? Can we have that as just a matter of procedure? So that I just like to have that in front of me.
I'll be glad to include that in the packet with attached to the board items, so that you will have that each time. That'll be easy. We have it on a spreadsheet. It's readily available, so it's no problem.
Thank you.
And this is Paulette Coleman again. What happens if we don't approve?
It is likely that the project will not move forward based on our review of this. And so that's one of the things that why we are doing this, and we're trying to figure out what the least amount is to make the project financially feasible. So it is likely it will not. It is 4% credits, which are not as devastating if you decline 4% credits, 5% credits. So, you know, I don't know what the developer would do in this case.
That's right. And I think we just had a case recently in the news, I believe, where what is Hank Helton's organization? They were looking at doing a project for affordable housing, and eventually ended up because
that's right. It's Pathway Lending. I forgot about that one. It's very recent.
That's right. That it probably was announced over the holidays, where a project for affordable housing did not move forward because the funding sources didn't match the timing of their commitments to the land. And so while Pathway is out doing great work, due to some of the hangups towards the end of calendar year 20, that project, it's not going to be able to hit the boards. Okay. All right, Joe. So I think we understand, the sense of urgency around a February board meeting. I think as our executive director has pointed out, that without having anything to vote on, as in we don't have an amount and we haven't negotiated amount, there's nothing for us to vote on today. And so, to the extent that we get that information as soon as we can get it, I mean, we can always. I think we have a pre-meeting set up for just this coming Tuesday. I suspect you won't have it by then, but we'll have our Thursday meeting prior to February's board, and we can go ahead and I think pencil that in for the agenda for February.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Are there any more questions or deliberations from Board of Commissioners?
Very quick question. The next time this comes up, it will be before the Joint Finance and Development. One of the things I think we should decide or have some sense about, not in the future, these should always go to development, subsequently finance, whether it just government. And can you hear me or not?
You're breaking up a little bit. We can hear you.
Well, the question, we can talk about it, but it's a question of finance and development, and whether or not finance, Commissioner Faden's question, whether development is sufficient or whether finance should also hear it and know where we are in terms of that. Sorry about the sound. It's just that time of the year.
Well, I think for everyone that didn't hear, I think the question presented by our chair is really around, is it simply a development issue or is it a development and finance issue? And I think this goes back to one of Commissioner Thaden's early question, that given the size of our board and the fact that quite frankly, most development and finance issues continue to run together, whether or not we should continue to just convene as a joint and allow us to handle these issues in one single meeting as opposed to kind of do it in a serial process. I think we should, add that to our agenda solve for our January meeting. And I think a broader issue that Commissioner Thaden has brought up in the past is whether or not, given that there are only 7 members of the committee, why do we have so many individual subcommittees when we're not, a 13 or 17 member board that becomes unwieldy in order to handle these. And so I think we should try to come to at least put some thought to it to begin to resolve that in our January retreat.
Yeah, that's a retreat issue. I had a question. I'm sorry. Are we through with the agenda and ready going to new stuff?
If there are no more questions related to the pilot, we can close this issue out and move on. We can move on to old business. I think that's where we are in the agenda.
The one last thing I would just like a fun fact for people to know that in the last COVID relief package, they actually passed finally a guaranteed 4% minimum rate for the 4% tax credit.
Right.
This is very major moving forward because oftentimes deals can fall apart due to that tax rate changing. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that because I hope that will benefit all of us moving forward.
It's a great point. Any other questions, comments, deliberations relative to this pilot or pilots in general? All right, with that, we'll close that out and we'll reconvene on that at the time that our director requests participation from the board, and we will now move on to old business. So there are two things. There are really one thing on my list around old business, and I think we started talking about it last year. So I'm happy to wait to the end if there's other old business from other commissioners. I think we kind of discussed this both with you and with Buck, is really our policy around excess land and how we make decisions around these things. Getting to Commissioner Coleman's kind of earlier question is that, we've had someone who kind of sort of pitched. Well, we've had a couple of pitches. We had a pitch from Belmont University around a specific piece of property. I think there's two property issues that someone has said, hey, MDHA, we'd like to have your land in exchange for X. And we just kind of had Tony Giratano's kind of sort of public pitch to build something from MDHA to swap it out with XYZ 1, 2, 3. I think one of the things we discussed is what is our position as an agency and what is our policy or what is our process around how do we actually evaluate these things and bring these things through fruition through some type of disposition or value add framework. I don't think we have anything.
So Buck has been working on a policy. Last time I looked at it, it was I think 5 to 6 pages long. And I talked to the chair about that, and he kind of thought it'd be a good idea, a good topic for the retreat as well. So that's kind of where that stands. We're happy to send out a straw person, proposal before that. That's helpful. But I know that Bucky on the call.
He's on. Or at least his name appears.
Okay, I'm here. I needed to unmute two places. So, yeah, we've got that policy at least drafted up, and Commissioner Ansari, I don't know what the rules are, whether I need to, send that to everybody, or we send that as a board retreat, read ahead information. But we've got some processes already, discussed with a working group on that, and that's pretty mature. That said, there's some decision points in it that we could get guidance from the board on the creation of a property review committee and how we present it to the board. So there are some steps in there that you would probably be very interested in, and give us and we would be looking forward to the feedback on that.
That's right. And again, subject to to other members of the board and our chair. I guess from my only perspective is that simply because someone proposes something to MDHA, in my opinion, it doesn't make it feel like we have to have a rush or we're under the gun to make a decision based on someone else's proposal. So, I mean, I don't know how the other members feel or kind of sort of where the direction is on that. But these requests don't keep me up at night saying, oh, my God, we need to respond to XYZ simply because they propose something. If there's a different sentiment at the board level or inside the agency, we should probably table that issue. But I think that that at least from my perspective is that, unless it doesn't feel like that we have any urgency to respond to unsolicited ideas that aren't relative to a strategy that aren't aligned with the strategy that we have as an agency.
So, but I assume then there'll be strategies created, agreement is reached on, and then that will flow into policies and processes. So how that is made and based on specific criteria. I don't know where the decision making will lie on it along the way, but that's my assumption. Is that right?
Was there a question to me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So the decision it depends on what the committee wants. I mean, but in general, always depending on the price of the property, we've thought about who has that authority to approve it. I mean, we've got some parcels of land that might be worth $5,000, and if that land is identified as surplus land, then the executive director would have the authority to dispose of that property because the value is limited. And so part of the whole process is categorizing the types of properties, the surplus properties that we have, and then putting that forward for decision to the development committee and then the board on how to categorize. If they agree to that categories, then it would go to different levels of authority for their decision. But only for the lower properties is the executive director's decision. Everything above like $50,000 and above would go to a development committee and then the board for final disposition. And so we would look at this, just a quick snapshot foreshadow on this is it would be that we review all surplus properties annually to make sure that we want to keep on the disposal list, and then the authorities go forward from there.
Okay, so I think the important thing, some of this is it's good governance, and we should clearly be doing this. Some of it is also a reaction to front on the board that lack context, seem to lack a process. So I think if we can do better at getting stuff in front of the boards and committees earlier than later, that will also help us. But obviously having the policy written down is also important. But if we could be just have more transparent communication between the staff and the board also help some of the issues that we've had in the past. So, but again, the proposal of Bucks will be viewed as a straw. Really, no pride of authorship, just a straw person. It's easier to start with something written down than getting into a room and starting to create. So I think the board should review that, and all comments welcome, and no feelings would be hurt. So,
thank you. I just wanted to share the fact that I agree with Commissioner Ansari, and I feel very, very strongly that even if we have a policy or a process, unless it fits in some grander scheme or comprehensive strategy, it's still ad hoc. While we might arrive at the decision in a better way, it still may not be a good decision because it isn't moving us toward whatever our ultimate goal and mission are. So absent it's fitting within a context, a broad context of who we are and what we do and how we do it, I'm not sure how much time we should spend on it other than reviewing it. So I'm calling for a broader, more comprehensive, more visionary, more strategic approach within which a policy about use of excess land might fit.
And within the mission of the agency, I think that's what we're looking at is how does this advance the purpose and mission of this agency, not just valuations, but it falling within that sort of context is important to me also.
That's right. And so I think building on Kay and Paulette's point is that when you look at what was proposed by Rotana, right, that could fall strictly inside the development side, not the affordable housing side, not the, there's part of what we do that's about the fabric of the development of the downtown, the development, the development goals of Metro Nashville in general. And so I think, having a good context that both frames up what our work is around creating and preserving affordable housing for Nashville's neediest residents. We also have a development component to what we do that's related to the strong growth of metropolitan Davidson County and the city of Nashville itself. So I do agree. And I think we just need to make sure that we're staying broad enough in our strategic framework, because as we look at, especially as we're beginning to draft the job description for our new executive directors, there are some strong components in that around what we do for Nashville as a whole related to the development and the growth of the city itself. I think that's important to be reminded of as well.
I'm glad you mentioned the search, because I thought the preliminary description is a really, really good beginning, and it kind of decompartmentalized the three major activities in which we're engaged. We may agree or disagree, but I thought it was a good beginning point.
I'm just while we're on that subject, just as a little commercial, we are going to try to discuss the Tuesday board meeting. I know that Cynthia's in the process of gathering comments, so I know she's already had discussions with you, but the extent you can finalize your comments and get them back to her as soon as you can, that would be great. So
they were due yesterday.
Okay.
And she sent us a reminder.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So is there any more old business? All right. Is there any new business?
I just had one question for the staff related to the tragic bombing downtown. I was curious about what we're hearing from the mayor's office, and then also if there's any request of MDHA related to the major recovery that will be coming.
Chair Purcell, do you want to take this one?
Hear me? The mayor's office has been in communication with me, and we have reviewed what tools we have in our to be helpful, and they are under evaluation now. There is a preliminary group that was formed by the Historic Commission and the Historic Zoning Commissions together. They met earlier this week in a preliminary way, and I outlined the areas in which MDHA has authority and could be of help. And I can take you through that now if you'd like, or we can save it for the board meeting next week. But in essence, these buildings are by and large not within the redevelopment district. The district carved out everything from Church to Broadway, and basically from the river to the alley behind the telephone company. There are two exceptions to that. One is the Sbarro Pizza Place, which is under a garage that was built long ago to provide parking for the then J.C. Bradford building, now the CMT building. That's within the redevelopment district. And there is also then the area north of Church, both sides of the street on 2nd. Only the northwest corner appears to have been directly affected by the bombing. That would be the building that you might identify as the candy store for people who are older. You'd identify it as Cecil Branstedter's old law office. That building was affected by the bombing. That's apparent. And that's within the redevelopment district. As you move south, just for your sort of your own information, south of Broadway is all in the redevelopment district. We have, however, authority, and Joe Kane has been in communication with Mark Sturdivant, and they are, I think, in regular and lifelong communication about what authority we have in the areas adjoining the redevelopment district, because we have statutory authority to be of assistance, and it's worth your knowing as a development committee. There was a time, actually, when MDHA was called upon by the city to redirect the flow of the river. In fact, MDHA at one time actually changed the direction of traffic flow on 2nd Avenue just outside of the redevelopment district. And we believe that was under the authority that we have within the area. So we know from experience and practice as well as law that we have some ability to be of assistance, especially in the right-of-way and the public areas adjoining the redevelopment district. And then one more thing. We have used our authority in the past, and this occurred during my administration as mayor. We use our authority to assist in the provision of housing, and specifically affordable housing, in a development on 2nd Avenue, which was affected by the bombing. This is an area in which 3 buildings, it's above, you might know it as the spaghetti factory on the ground floor. But above the spaghetti factory are actually 3 buildings combined, in which one was removed in the center to provide light and air, and the 2 buildings on each side were converted into housing, 20% of which was affordable. Joe advises the pilot burned off long ago, but it's an example, back to our earlier agenda item, where we used pilot to incentivize the construction, not just of housing, but we insisted in those days that any time pilot or TIF was used, that 20% of it at a minimum would be affordable. And that, in fact, occurred in that space. So historically, as well as legally, we've used a portion of our toolkit to assist in the development and redevelopment of that area, including housing and affordable housing. And then we've also actually worked on the built environment within that space. The mayor's office is aware of both those precedents and our authority. Joe and Saul and Matt are in connection with the administration, and I presented basically what I just presented to you to the larger historic commission, historic zoning commission, and broader community meeting that occurred on Tuesday evening. And we expect that as the final evaluation of what's occurred on the site is completed, that we'll have both more information and more need will be clear. One last thing that's worth your knowing, I think, there is an underlying issue of insurance, obviously, for the buildings that were affected. The early decision that it is not terrorism appears to work much to the advantage of these properties, but that's not a decision. That's not a reality or conclusion that we yet know about. In addition, there was there's specific outreach to individual building owners by the city to both determine their knowledge, their capacity, and their interest. There is the nice thing about, the city would say, the advantage of a historic zoning area with an historic overlay like this. This would be Ann Roberts doing now some 25 years ago. Is that within an historic area with the overlay, we have the ability to prevent demolition. Not something that we have in a redevelopment district currently. None of our redevelopment districts have that. So from a city perspective, they have an additional set of levers that we would not have within the redevelopment district. On the other hand, they don't have the full toolkit that we have. But this is an area, and I appreciate Commissioner Thaden's question, where people can begin to think, us and the city, they've thought of tax increment financing and these other things as incentives in a particular way, right? That has been, Commissioner Coleman has raised this issue. This is an area where we have historically dealt with housing, affordable housing, and preservation, as well as the prevention of blight, and we've worked aggressively at different times in our history. Stallman Building at the top of the street, an example of that. The Viridian, one can argue, but at least 20% was affordable. Those are all within this area, places where we have acted in the past to work specifically on housing, directly on affordable housing, and also been of assistance to the city. There was another time, just to complete the story, where MDHA also was called upon to redirect Church Street. MDHA actually was the moving party. We weren't there. We were barely alive, the people on this call, when the city decided that to save Church Street, it needed to be put into a serpentine pattern so that it resembled a large snake lying on the ground and moved in a snaky way from the Gulch to Broadway. Well, basically from the Gulch to Second Avenue from the Broadway, and so MDHA did that too. So just so that you're clear about it. Now later, there was another time, the then mayor used Public Works to undo what MDHA had done on Church Street. So lest we think we've always been perfect, perhaps not always, but we've been very involved and very engaged and very concerned. And back to Commissioner Thaden's question and point, I think there's an opportunity again for MDHA to show the good it can and will do when called upon, and we have offered that to the city.
Yeah, I think that stands now. Thank you for that, Chair. He's been the chair has been very involved with the administration, so we do greatly appreciate his involvement and his efforts. The administration is a little overwhelmed right now on everything that's on their plate. And so there has not been a lot, as we understand, not a lot of organization or movement on the Second Avenue issue in general as of yet. So we're looking forward to hearing more. Joe, as the chair pointed out, is in almost daily contact with planning, and sort of Mark Sturtevant is kind of there. I don't know if there's property involved or development involved, and there's nobody else in the mayor's office who can kind of get their arms around it. Sturtevant's been getting it, so he'll probably have some involvement in this as well. But I imagine there will be a role for MDHA in this. So, good question. I also want everybody to know that the staff is very involved in the call today, but I actually fed them all those answers ahead of time, and that scripted all of this for them, but I wanted them to look good today. So that's really what happened. I knew all those answers that they
All right.
And thus the Solomon regime begins.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, well, first thing, I'm always mindful of giving people hours back during the workday to the extent that we can. Saul, can we, in the new business, the heading of new business, right? Amazon has made an announcement around a commitment to affordable housing to 3 cities. JP Morgan has, allocated, $1 billion, or $100 billion, or $1 billion, or whatever that number is towards that. I think it'd be good for us to try to understand is we have people in our organization who are focused on kind of sort of capital, and there's lots of stuff being announced in the news. And I think we needed to figure out like how, what is our frame of reference to pursue this on behalf of MDHA. Like, I love what the folks at Elmington Capital are doing. I like all the other affordable housing developers out there, but do we see ourselves as an agency? We are a development agency. We have needs. We have things that we have identified where capital can be applied very effectively to improve and expand our stock of permanently affordable housing. I think we need to kind of come together and figure out, well, what are we? Are we partnering with the city, and between the mayor's office and MDHA, we're going hand in hand, elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder to go get this money, and we're competing against the Elmingtons of the world? Or are we simply enablers for others to do this type of work in the affordable and workforce housing space? I think the time is now for us to begin to think about how we want to pursue that as an agency.
That's a great point. We had a meeting yesterday, internal meeting, to discuss the different ways we can approach this. And so we're going to come up with sort of a couple of different papers, on one being, what specifically on Amazon, what has Amazon done to date? What do they want out of this money? Those kind of just to understand, kind of get a mindset for them. And then ways which MDHA can either compete or help coordinate or work with the city or work with the city in trying to determine the best way for this $500 million to be allocated. And those ideas can come from, hey, Amazon, we're familiar with getting a lot of money. We can keep some from ourselves. We can then run an RFP process like we've done, like with CDBG. It's all kinds of ideas. Or we go hand in hand with the city and say, hey, here's, the other thing that's going on is there is this affordable housing task force that the city has just created, of which we've got a staff member and 3 board members on this committee. So that's going to be announced, I guess, in the next X number of days. There's a lot of kind of moving parts here, but we are on top of it. It's pretty much been run out of Matt's office. Matt, you might want to take over here. Matt has been in close contact with the 2 principal players locally with Amazon, and he can brief you on those conversations if you'd like him to do that. So we're on top of it. We're excited about it, and we're starting to gather what we think a couple of their proposals would be for our involvement. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
Good. Yeah. Now, I don't think we need to go into, I'm not requesting anything deep on this, but I think what we offered that I think that no one else really can, and we need to think about our advantages as an organization, is that we offer shovel-ready projects at the Dow. That is the advantage we have, right? And so my natural aggressive instinct says, don't let perfection get in the way of progress in this matter, because we have projects that are ready to go, and we offer them the shortest path to good press and to meeting the needs of our residents that are challenged by income. So that's my only kind of sort of overarching thoughts, is that it is here, it is now, and we present shovel-ready projects and a very capable team to get them executed. So my general instinct would not be to shrink behind other folks because we have something they don't, and we should take advantage of what we offer unique to this situation.
Understood.
Well, I think one of the basic views that Amazon and JP Morgan have and those sorts of things is that this helps improve the problem we have of lack of affordable housing. So whatever we're going to do, is it going to create more? Is it going to add more? Because we have workers that can afford housing. So is what we're going to do in the vision that we lay out going to meet that criteria?
Yeah, Amazon.
I would also like to acknowledge that I think Amazon specifically really understands preservation. and recognizing the fact that if we lose units, it's the same issue, right? Then we're just rebuilding them all. And so their focus on preservation as well as racial equity and solid community involvement, engagement, and real community leadership, and an emphasis on partnering and working with POC-led organizations. I think a lot of that aligns with where we've been trying to move as an organization in terms of DBE, our vision planning process. And so I just really appreciated the values that I saw in Amazon's announcement and what they're trying to do.
Yep, I was going to say something just like that. Emily, you had said it much more articulately than I did. They are very also concerned about social services around housing. So they have they've got some clear ideas and they're very well schooled in this. And I think we are well positioned to really help them. And when I say Matt's been in touch with the people on the ground locally, they're doing things like asking him, well, should we do this? Should we do that? He's very engaged with them. So the one thing we want to make sure we do is we want to work closely with the city. We just have to. It's the right thing to do, and convince them that we have the people don't. But in the
maybe are they familiar with the purpose-built communities model? Matt says yes. Okay.
All right. Well, with that, is there any new business for the agenda? Any further discussion around old or new business? All right. With there being none, is there a motion to adjourn today's Development Committee meeting?
I move the adjournment.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. All opposed? With there being none opposed, we adjourn today's Development Committee meeting. Thanks, everyone, and have a great 2021.
Thank you.